Driveline R&D podcast, episode 37. This is Alex Caravan, co-host, co-swag manager of baseball analytics. Drinking some perhaps spiked coffee, aka whatever alcohol would have been at this truck stop. Lindley?
Lindley, R&D engineer, Driveline Baseball. I'm going to spike my coffee with some of this Texas whiskey my girlfriend just got me. Very excited to try it out. Here it is for proof.
Dropping a girlfriend name on the podcast, dog?
Big day, dude. Big day.
Wow. Okay. I'm Anthony Brady, Driveline biomechanist and primary host, undisputed primary host of the Research and Drinks podcast. And today I'm drinking some potentially spiked, but most likely not spiked green tea because, as I mentioned on the last podcast, I am remaining sober for the rest of October. So it's been a really tough 3 days, and I only have 2 or 3 more to go. So I think I can make it though. And today joined with guest Carter Capps,
potentially the most underrated.
Well, wait. So is your title director of pitching? Are you director of pitching at Driveline Baseball? Is that correct?
Yeah, it definitely depends on the day. I'll change my title depending on what I feel like I want to do that day. If I'm not feeling like doing a lot of work, I'll switch my title to part-time. Okay. And I'll come in. I'll basically come in at noon, leave by 1, and take a 30-minute lunch break. So then that's a good setup too. But yeah,
you switch titles. So in the morning you're lead director of pitching interns, and then in the afternoon you're director of pitching. How does that
for
work?
Sure. So in the mornings, there's a lot of low energy. So I just try and bring the energy. So I'm director of in-gym personality. So I'll get up before they stole the microphone from me. We had a microphone over in the plyo wall area, and I would just yell at guys nonstop. So I think that got shut down pretty quick. But so in the mornings, just personality, just bringing the energy, and then towards the end of the day, I'm just trying to sneak out. So I'm low key director, just supervisor towards the end.
Right, yeah. Just get that managerial level position that really doesn't do anything good.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I think director of base camp in the evenings is a pretty good blend. You know what I mean? Yeah. You got to kind of cruise through, and then in the evening, kind of ping off all the relevant base camp message boards. That's a good transition. Yeah,
underrated. I have a lot of good base camp posts, but one of my underrated ones was have you been motivated by anything lately? And I was just no. That was my only response. Yeah. And then Worth started sending me a lot of self-help books and stuff. So oh god, okay.
You're joking around. He takes it seriously. Hey, just checking in, making sure you're all right, man.
You're all right. Well. Yeah. No. Have you seen motivated? No, not really. No.
Oh, good. Okay, so we got Carter on the podcast. I think this is the first floor trainer we've had, skill coach on the podcast, right? From Driveline, at least, Driveline employee. So it is a pretty prestigious honor. I think you're 6th guest or 7th guest, maybe
something like that. Carter even said before the recording that this is his first interview ever. Yeah. So we're pretty excited.
I'm not really sure what to do with my hands. I just are they okay or?
Yeah, this is never before seen content of Carter Capps. He's never done an interview, never done a podcast before. So if you're
first time on video, I think
find out about his mechanics, all that stuff, this is going to be the place.
This is the spot to do it.
That's the
linear momentum. Questions. I'm a sagittal plane monster.
Oh, yeah, exactly. With that, mean, so you did say, though, that in the past, that's got to be the most common question, right? Is, how did the hop come about?
Yeah, they I feel like other podcast guys, they do a good job of, going to small talk in the beginning, and then it's it's coming, and that's usually the bulk of the podcast. But, if that's something you guys are interested in, I could more than happy. I have my spiel down, so.
Oh, I'm ready. I'm ready for the spiel. The polished answer of the hop.
Yeah. So I obviously didn't always throw like that. I definitely was more of a traditional guy. I was pretty counter rotated, a little bit strode across my body, a little bit true 3/4 slot. When I came up, still throwing really hard and everything, but just very traditional. Still a lot of I would say quad dominant push down the mound. I still got very, very far down the mound, but nothing like I did towards the end. But yeah, it was just like kind of accumulation of injuries. Just like had a few partial tears to the UCL that I just kept getting PRPs in and not having surgery. So kind of pitching through that. And it was just like velo wasn't there. So I was like, oh, just add more legs, add more quad, get down the mound. And it just started like elongating. And I felt it elongating, but like I was never a big video guy, so I didn't like sit down and like hammer it out. Right. So I was like, man, like it's coming out good again. Like I'm happy with where it is. I show up in spring training and I'm just like striking out the world. And like they're asking me about my new delivery. And I'm like, yes, I mean, it's a little weird and everything, but like kind of is what it is. Like that Jordan Walden guy is doing it. So I was like, well, I mean, he's seen a lot of success, perennial all-star. So it's like just kind of, nobody wanted me to change it, so just kept doing it, and then all of a sudden it goes viral, and just kind of a big deal with that. So that kind of spiraled down, and then 2016 spring training I had surgery, Tommy John, and then on my way back 2017 spring training, I come in ready to go, planning on doing the hop down the mound type stuff again. And like I just show up to the clubhouse one day and there's like 30 people in front of my lockers. Like, so whenever that happens, like you come in, it's like there's 30 reporters in your lockers. Like, okay, somebody either died, I got released, like I got traded, like something happens. And it's like, no, I was beside Brad Hand. So I was like, oh, maybe they're here for Brad. And they all just like turn as one unison and look at me like, oh, this isn't good. So I go down there and like, oh, what do you think about the rule change? They're like, oh yeah, what rule change? So that's actually how I found out. Was just the reporters like asking me questions like, yeah, I don't know, nobody's told me. So that was kind of in spring, and then I just spent like, the rest of my career basically trying to like not get that like super triple extension down the mound, like knee, hip, ankle, triple extension down the mound, and just couldn't really get out of that like patterning. There's two cars right there, Caravan.
Car counts too. So with the like in that, it sounds like it kind of just like came about on its own, or was there like someone who was like, you should start to like leap more kind of a thing? Because I guess for me it would have been a year or two earlier when I was coming back from my second Tommy John. I was down at the RDRBI thing with Tom House down at USC, and I want to say that was the year that he started going like pretty ham on the jumping type throwing, like, and I believe he used you, or maybe it was someone else as an example around that time, but kind of like leaping, driving down the mound, and like having your drag line, like you're a righty going towards like the left. And so he was big on that down at USC. So was it just like you kind of just like stumbled into it, or someone was like, you should do this?
Yeah, no, it was pretty organic. It just kind of developed. Like I said, I just wasn't getting the velocity I'd used to, because I was always throwing hard, and it just wasn't there. And I was like, okay, well, like you always hear like these old school coaches, oh, just throw it more with your legs, like, okay, it's like, well, I can generate more linear momentum. Like I can do that. So then that's kind of how it progressed. And then it was like, okay, well, like I got to stop this momentum. So that like, I know these things now, but it's like, oh, two more cars. And like, the lead leg block became really big. So I was like, okay, I got to do that. So like it kind of developed like just out of like I still want to throw really hard. Like, how do I do it? Kind of like figuring it out, self-organization, like this is the process. So, and then, I guess Tom House was like really big in on it. He never like contacted me or anything, but I guess he was like using videos and stuff. So I'm expecting some royalties from him anytime soon.
The leaping that tore up my back hip too. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, there's not that many elite athletes as myself that can pull it off.
Right.
I would say.
Did you have more like discomfort or injuries that came about because, or like after, or seemingly because of the hop that you had to kind of like remedy?
It's like kind of the chicken or the egg, right? Like I had the partial tears while I was more traditional. So like there was already some like injury in that area in the medial elbow. So it's like, I mean, which one was which? I ended up having like a 40% tear and then a 60% tear, and then it tore off the bone. So it was like, and that was like all as the stuff was happening. So I think it was largely just like what I would do is like, I knew I was sore, right? Because I had to get all these PRPs. So in the off season, I would just completely shut down And then I just come into spring with like a very small workload built up. And I think that was more the issue, like just like because all the coaches were like, hey, like just don't throw much at all this off season, save your volume for the season. But I just wasn't building up that chronic workload and into an already like compromised like elbow situation. So it was just kind of a bad like sequence of events there.
But nothing weird in the lower half after the lower body change of mechanics.
No, I get like some patella tendon soreness just from like the like amount of momentum created. But that was about it.
Was there ever like
did any teammates ever ask you like for tips, or have you tried like coaching them at all, or changing their mechanics?
I mean, a lot of guys would like joke around and try to do it, and they usually ended up falling. So that was always fun to watch. But yeah, no, because I would never teach it because it's like. It was largely like if you look at my mechanics, like I had this like really big stab with the arm, and it kind of stalls out back there. So the mechanics are more of a like a time, or the lower half is more like a timing mechanism, like until my arm gets up. Because like once my arm gets up, like it's fairly normal looking. I'm just like significantly down the mound at that point. So I think it's just more of a timing mechanism. So that was part of the issue when I was coming back and like trying to not do that. It was like, okay, well, I can just focus on the lower half and get it semi-normal. And then I can there was still like a little quad dominant push, but, and then I can kind of focus on the arm, but the arm was actually, I had a bigger hitch in my arm than I did in the lower half, which was kind of odd. So that kind of got me down the path of, oh, wow, like this is more of a timing mechanism for me to get up on time with the hand, like, and then apply force.
Interesting.
And at what point in the time you were trying to like throw without it and kind of adjust for the rule change, did you like come across Driveline, and how did that come about?
Yeah, so that was like towards the very end. I saw a lot of biomechanists, and it just like had a lot of interviews and stuff with them, like, hey, like, and it's always like a interesting case study for those guys. So they're always happy to talk, but it was just interesting because like they all had very different like plans for how to attack it, and it was largely just like patterning. And I was like, yeah, I've tried that. Like I've tried like low intent, and I can do 50% reps, very normal, I would say. I could do a mean towel drill.
Yeah. I don't doubt it at all.
But then as soon as high intent comes, like it's like something snaps, and it's like I want to like get this guy out. Like 'cause I was like always like very like combative, like in the like pitcher hitter interaction. Like I want to like get you out. Like I want to like hurt your feelings. Like I don't like, and I think part of that, just the mentality, it was hard for me to change as well. Cause like, it's like, and I say that to like all the guys I train too, like I really don't care how you move at low intent. Like we'll pattern it at low intent, but then as soon as I think you're like even close, like we're going to start mixing in high intent. Cause I got to get carryover, right? Like that's when I need it. Like I need you to move fast with good positioning. It doesn't do me any good to have you move 60% effort.
Yeah. Was there ever a time like in games, did you ever like intentionally kind of like do more or less? And was there ever a point where you were like, you know, you leaped like really far down the mountain? You're like, okay, I exaggerated that one like a bit too much. Like that's probably whack.
Yeah, not really. I did notice like O2, I want to go like more in the tank. Like it did like get a little bit quicker. And the timing sometimes would be off. I also noticed that slider was like slightly different length down the mound than the fastball. So it's largely like a mentality with the patterning. But yeah, I mean, I never like intentionally tried to shorten or lengthen it. I did get called for some balks in a minor league game and like started throwing sidearm, but like that was about it. Yeah. Okay.
That's electric. I have a kind of switching gears off of the mechanics. You come to drive. You have a pretty unique perspective and a really good one for people who are trainers at Driveline, because we are obviously very progressive. We we use this frame of training and prescribing different programs. But like I'm curious to hear, and we have this perception of pro ball and what pro ball is like. But I would be curious to hear your thoughts on like what are some misinterpretations or misconceptions that we have about how pro ball approaches player development, and is like, what's the carryover? What's the, or like, how much of that's truth? How much of that is just like false? Like, I assume there is like a good amount of decent player development in pro ball that we just like kind of don't always pay attention to.
Yeah, there's for sure a lot of good player development, but it's kind of based around like wait for the guy to fail, right? Like, so the higher draft pick you are, the more like monetary value is assigned to you, right? So like somebody's name is attached to like that guy's pick. So like you don't want to be the coach to like mess him up, but at the same time, like some guys want to like put a stamp on a guy. So like there is a little bit of that give and take where it's like, if this guy's rolling good, I can't say a word to him. Right. I remember one time I was a pretty high draft pick. I remember one time I couldn't for the life of me like land a secondary pitch. So I was playing AA with James Paxton. I was like, hey, how do you hold your curveball? Because like I need something, because like I'm not getting called up until like I can throw a secondary pitch. And he showed me. So I went in and threw it that game, and it was great. But like the pitching coach kind of got like some crap for it because they didn't pass it up the chain that I was like changing the pitch grip, right? Like, so like something comically as small as that, definitely like it is a little bit there. But at the same time, like when you're going, like everybody wants to win, like that is a like forefront on everybody's thought. Like, so there's no, like they're very much like a organizational mindset. Like everybody's pulling in the same direction. So we all want the same thing. It's just guys go about it a different way. I do think some organizations are ahead of others, but that's any industry you're in, right? Like that's going to be the case. Some teams have higher budgets, some don't. Some get more creative. So there's a lot of like public stuff as well. And then like every team has their dirty laundry. Like, and you just have to be like accept like what it is. You know what I mean? Right.
So it seems like in pro ball they're like waiting for the problem to be there and fixing it. Like if it ain't broke, don't fix it, as opposed to taking what they have and trying to like immediately improve it. I feel like that's got to be like a brutal like, you know, kind of like wake up for especially these like high draft picks who are like just studs in high school and college that are just like grinding, always trying to get better, and then they like show up to pro ball expecting like elite coaching or development, and they're just like left to their own devices until they fail, and then it's just like barrage of like coaching information at that point.
Yeah, and some of that is like the coach wants to see you a few times, which I totally get. But yeah, some of that is like reactive versus proactive coaching. You know what I mean? Like where, hey, like I can't really say anything because this guy's rolling good. Like even at different levels, right? Like so, success at A ball means nothing at AA, right? Like you may or like that doesn't carry over very well. So like some guys like in the rehab sense that I've seen, like I'll see a pitch and I'm like, man, that's really probably not going to play very well at the next level. Like it's working great here, but like, do you say something? Do you let him figure it out on his own? Like that's the kind of like balance act you got to follow in pro ball. So that's a little bit frustrating. And I think that's what's nice about Driveline is like guys come out, like we don't really have these filters that we have to apply to ourselves. Like they're asking for help, another truck, and they want to get better, and they don't really care who it comes from. They don't care how, right?
Kind of in that regard, I was going to ask. I know it's been a couple of years, but what was kind of? I know the setup you just described, MLB being fairly bureaucratic and stuff has a filter through the pitching coach. But did you have any one-on-one interaction with any sort of analyst or analytics team providing either batter pitcher matchups, insight on your arsenal? Like was that ever available to you, or is that ever like something that could have easily been reached out to?
Unfortunately, in the organizations I was with, it was more like, okay, so why are you asking for this information? Like you're pitching well, so why are you asking for this? Like they don't want you to like necessarily overthink it. So as far as arsenal analysis, zero. Definitely like pretty in-depth scouting reports though. But like some of the times, at least when I was coming up, we didn't have like, and that's kind of the role I would like to fill is like that niche where it's like, okay, like we got a guy with playing experience, we got a guy with like data analytics experience. Like, can we translate this to a player so it's applicable on field? Like I would get data like, okay, great. So what does it mean? Like, what do I need to do with that? Like, cause I was all in on it, but like, okay, do I need to throw more sliders? Do I need to like only throw elevated fastballs? Like, tell me what you want me to do with it. And it was just kind of hard to get that like continuity of, hey, like this means this. So your percentage of success is going to increase if you go about it this way.
Yeah.
Did you ever keep track, or did you ever keep track of like any advanced stats while you're pitching? I know you got a banger xFIP in 2015.
Yeah. So, xFIP. I didn't really, like I said, I pitched like slightly before and the start of the StatCast era. So like still like getting like, I guess still in the data gathering stage. So I didn't really have a ton of like experience with that. Mm-hmm. But I definitely know about FIP. I'm trying to think of advanced stats. Exit velocities we looked at a little bit, but that was about it.
But you were interested in kind of getting more information throughout your career. And you just like it wasn't easy to get to when you were in pro ball.
I feel like I was more interested in getting it, but once again, it's like when you start asking those questions, it just sends up red flags in some organizations. Like, hey, like this guy's overthinking it. Maybe he's not the route we should go. Like, cause like as a like late inning leverage guy, like I was supposed to be like, just go get them, like let your stuff play, which I definitely did once I was out there. But right. I think it would have been nice to have a little bit more context into like why was I successful? Right. Like for me, I'd always thrown hard, and then when I didn't, I was like, well, why am I not throwing? I didn't know why I threw hard. You know what I mean? I didn't know what positions I did that leveraged velocity very well until after the fact.
Right. So okay, with Lindley brought up the perspective changes, pro ball versus Driveline kind of a thing. In terms of, and one of the things he was saying, like when you showed up at Driveline as a trainee to start like training here, was there anything that like, do you have any like preconceived notions or something that were just like way off, and there were like other things that were different, or like was there something that when you got here was just like, oh shit, this is what this place is like, kind of a thing? Or did you feel pretty like informed, you knew what you were getting into? Or was it kind of just like, oh damn, I had no idea it was like this, from the outside at least?
At least in the big leagues, when I was there, it was definitely Driveline was like in the context of you go there when something's wrong. Right. I didn't realize like the wealth of like post game reports and like after action reports, Arsenal analysis that were capable. So that was kind of a pleasant surprise. Like, oh, okay. Like, so like they have like other resources that could keep me like at an elite level instead of, right. Oh my God, like complete biomechanical remap of arm action and lower body. Like, cause that's what I was kind of coming for, obviously. But right. Like, I was pleasantly surprised, like just the data in other areas.
Right. Okay. So then another one on that, then the perspective from like going from a trainee at Driveline to now a trainer at Driveline, like when you like made the switch into like employee, now you're like, working with athletes, you're on the other side. Was there anything that you didn't know was going on while you were a trainee that you found out was like happening behind the scenes and was like, oh shit, like I didn't know, or do you think we're pretty, I guess, like transparent with everything we do with athletes?
As far as behind the scenes stuff, just the amount of like legwork that goes into like data gathering, and then like the R&D stuff, like actually running peer reviewed articles and validation reports, like stuff like that. Like I was like, oh yeah, like I didn't realize like where all this data was going, right? Until like now, I was like, oh okay, like they're sending it, to get peer reviewed, or like we're gonna put together a blog post and try and find some correlation here or something like that.
Yeah, interesting.
On the topic of your arsenal, Anthony, I'm gonna steal this a little bit. You can get into the application of this, but how do you think? Have you ever played the show MLB The Show?
No, I was in it though.
Yeah. Oh, trust me. Yeah. I'm aware. You are the only reason that I made like the World Series ranking in MLB The Show for like 2 years, because I don't know if you know this, but you're literally a cheat code. Like,
that's what I've heard that a lot.
I was gonna say you have to have been told about that, because you were just the most like abused pitcher card in that game, because it was like absurd how much the hop, and then you also just threw like every fastball was like 100 miles an hour. It was just like
Yeah.
Untouchable.
I was gonna ask you, how do you think your arsenal matches up in real life versus what it is in the video game?
It depends on the year, but I honestly, like, in 2015, I think it was pretty accurate.
Let's go.
Like it was pretty easy. Yeah.
I mean, you were
That's
like
sick.
a staple in every bullpen. It was just like, oh god damn it, I'm screwed now. Christ. Yeah, that card was nasty. That card was gross.
If the rule change was to not be a thing, like if they were to either take it away or like adjust it so that your mechanics wouldn't be against rules or whatever, would you consider, or would you like train and consider playing now?
Oh yeah, I mean, like, I still have like the juice in my arm. Like, I'm not worried about that. So yeah, no, I definitely would still try and play.
You heard it here first, folks.
No.
Back.
No. We, I heard through the grapevine that, a contract offer was delivered recently. And, I mean, this would be a good time to say, is Carter Capps going to be a Seattle stud in 2021?
Well, they said that I would be the closer, sole closer. So they said that, there'd be some, I guess, pitching staff changes if I came on to play. I can't like get into that any further at this time, but it sounded like the previous closer would kind of be like looking for a job.
Well, I heard that the closer job had signed a 12-year contract 2 years ago. So that, I mean, hey, every great closer needs a great setup man,
I agree. You could definitely be that, I think. Okay. I think you could definitely be a good setup
what?
man.
We're going to get off this topic. We're going to go somewhere else. You know what? I don't even think your mechanics are legal in the PIL. So
I highly doubt it. They're very frowned upon. Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh, what about I lost my content competition to Caravan. So I'm trying to like either pivot to a different platform or just like get some tips. So I was wondering, how do you crush LinkedIn? Because I've seen you on your LinkedIn posts, dude. You got some good shit out there. Yeah. Got any tips for me?
Honestly, I just mess around in like some of O'Coin's like spreadsheets. I'm like looking for like an outlier. I'm like, oh, like this is really interesting. Like I'm gonna like go down this rabbit hole and like see what I find. Cause like I feel like I can find a correlation with anything, like whether it's interesting to other people or not, is debatable. But like I do feel like if you look at a guy's arsenal and like pitch usages, locations, heat maps, like for long enough, I feel like you're like, oh wow, like that's pretty unique. Like he does something a little different, like because they're like survivorship bias, right, in the big leagues. Like they're doing something better than somebody else. Like there's a reason they're there. So if you look at those guys, like even just on Brooks and Baseball Savant, if you look at them long enough, you're like, that's a pretty cool outlier. I did one on like Clase, Manuel Clase. I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And then like he doesn't throw a fastball. He throws the hardest cutter in the world. Like it's unbelievable. He's throwing a 98 mile an hour true cutter. Yeah. And whether he has any idea he's doing it or not, I don't know. But like the movement plot is strictly like an elite cutter. And it just happens to be the most extreme outlier ever. So like and I actually, to segue on that, like I think we should probably move away from like classifying pitches like fastball, curveball, slider, and more based off the actual movement plots. I think that would be interesting as well. I mean, you definitely would have like some different classifications, like a true slurve or whatever, gyro, slider. Like there's already some of that going on, but I just feel like some guys definitely like even come in gym. Like I've worked with some high level guys and they come in gym and they think they throw, a banger curveball. It's like, oh no, it's a really good slurve. Yeah. Like, or, I'm doing something different on my slider. And it's like, yeah, it's just like, it's basically a slutter, right? It has some vertical break aspect and a little glove side movement, but like, it's hard. Like DeGrom, right. If you look at DeGrom stuff, like nobody throws a 94 mile an hour slider. Like his is a cutter, right? Yeah. Like it has a vertical break component and some glove side movement, but like it's more of a cutter than it is a slider, and it's really somewhere in between. But like that is where the velocity is coming from, right? He's getting backspin on the ball. Like you can't like create strictly side spin and apply that amount of force to get it up to 94, or right. Gyro spin.
Yeah, I think it is moving that way. Like in general, like in the past, It was like pitch classification was just based on the grip or like how you threw it, right? It's like curveballs held like this, sliders held like this. And now, yeah, it definitely should be based on the pitch characteristics as opposed to just like, if you hold it like this, it's a curveball. If whatever old school external cue for a slider. But yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. And it'll help out more on the analytics side too.
Oh yeah.
Kind of a niche question. I was going to say on that topic, I know obviously at Driveline and someplace we talk quite a bit about spin axis and how that impacts movement and how manipulating that can change the shape of your pitches. From like an athlete point of view, do you find that easy to explain to other pitchers, and or like do you yourself find it easy to conceptualize changing your spin direction or like cueing yourself into altering your tilt one way or another?
Yeah, I definitely feel like I prefer the spin direction in the form of a clock versus degrees. I feel like that's a lot easier to explain to athletes.
Right.
So that actually helps a lot, just having that analog clock up there and be like, listen, like more down to 6. I just feel like it's easier for them to conceptualize as well. But as far as like axis shifting, I think you just come up with you show them a baseball and you say, this is what you're doing. Like, this is the axis. Like, see how if you had a rod going through the ball, like it would be pointed up. Like, if we want more depth, we need to point it down. Like, we need to make some sort of spin direction adjustment. Cause like, I basically just describe it as like, think about the pitch as like movement potential, right? Like we need spin efficiency, spin rate, and then the direction is going to tell you where the pitch is going to go. Like, so equal and opposite. Like, if you want the ball to go left as a right-handed hitter or a right-handed pitcher, like you need to apply force on the outside of the ball. Like that's how we're going to get. Like, you want the ball to go down, we need to apply force on the top. Like, we want backspin, we need to like pull down on the seam and create a good rip of the seam. I feel like that's what I kind of am good at, just as far as like communicating it with guys, because like I did kind of teach myself like off-speed pitches throughout my career. So it's like I kind of was doing pitch design without realizing it. And it's very interesting in the pitch design setting, just seeing like the edger footage and like a guy who thinks he's getting like on top of the curveball, like is nowhere close. Like he's like on the side and underneath the ball and it's like popping out consistently. And he's getting like downward break visually just via like a slower pitch. And it's just interesting to see that like guys feel one thing, like the feel versus real, like they feel one thing, but then we like go show them like, no, that's not it. Like, you're going to have to exaggerate that even more. And then eventually they'll get that feeling and they take off and run with it. And then we don't have to do any real coaching after that. But just getting them over that hump of, no, it feels like this and I'm seeing this. Like, so it's got to be right. And it's like, well, yeah, but you could optimize it way more.
Right.
Sliders especially. Because like, if you see your slider breaking, like it's probably like significantly slowing it down, right? Like, whereas like the good hard sliders, like by the time like you're visually tracking it as you throw it, like it is probably already gone, right? Or it's just a tiny little 6-inch glove side break.
So with the feel versus real stuff, I mean, I guess this is kind of a weird one, and it's actually kind of like relevant because we just started doing the athlete education courses.
Yeah.
Do you think that do you think it's like important that you as a trainer working with an athlete, do you think it's important that you help them understand the nuances of what is really happening? Like, how important do you think educating that athlete is on that? Whereas like alternatively, if you could just give them the right grip or the right external cue and they were able to perform the like pitch movement characteristics that you wanted, but they didn't understand it at all. Right? Like they didn't understand the spin axis, the spin efficiency of it, all of that, but they were able to execute it. Do you think that's like fine? Or do you think it's better to be able to like educate the athlete? And do you think that's necessary to like teach them this is spin axis, this is horizontal break, this is vertical break, and this is why you need to know all that, and then get them to the point of like being able to recreate that kind of a thing?
Yeah, for me, that's strictly like an athlete basis. Like, I got to know that they can handle that amount of information.
Right.
So what I do is I slowly like start like conditioning them to that as they're like a trainer, especially if they're going to be in gym for a while. Like by the time they leave, I'm expecting them to know like all the nuances of that. But like these shorter stay guys, like I know they're already going to be overwhelmed when I do the biomech report. Like they're already going to be, their head's going to be spinning. Like what can they handle? Like what is their worst thing that I can do that like they're going to go out and see results instantly? Because like that's what's going to be like, oh wow, I need to go back. Like if they have that good experience where, okay, like I did this and I significantly saw improvement. Like if a guy has like, you know, like great vertical break, good, you know, approach angle, like, okay, hey, maybe think about throwing your fastball up in the zone a little bit more often, help that curveball tunnel a little bit better so you don't just have to get strikes on your 0-2 curveball in the dirt. Like a simple suggestion like that. But like I'm not going to tell him about like vertical approach angle and pitch tunneling and stuff like that. I'm just going to be like, hey, like this would play better in this scenario based off of these two factors. And then I kind of send him all the way. And then depending on his like correspondence, like, oh, okay, like that clearly hit home. Like he understood that very well. Like we kind of go to a different, like, okay, we're going to go to like level 2 type pitch design type stuff. Same thing with understanding biomechanics. Like, okay, like we're going to start off with talking about scap retraction. Like if you can get that, like, okay, cool. That makes sense, right? Like we got more time. We have more time in layback. We can apply more force to the baseball. Perfect. Okay. Everybody kind of knows what hip shoulder separation is. So that one's usually pretty easy. But then you start talking about like pelvis angle and trunk angle and like the kinematic sequencing, and then their heads start spinning a little bit sometimes. So like I'll back off and be like, okay, think about it like this. Like, like how do we like the hip shoulder separation that you already know about is just the difference in your hip angle and your trunk angle. Like that's all it is. So let's just try and maximize that, you know? So it's basically like strictly on what the athlete is giving me back feedback wise.
Yeah, I think the biomechanics side is like a whole nother like beast, and like we've actually talked about that on like the last episode and the episode before that with like biomechanics reports and how like, you know, there's just a lot of minutia that you can get into that like athletes don't need to know about, you know. And I think I don't remember, it might have been something that like Kainoa Correa, who's like old coach and with the Giants now, but he said like a couple years ago to me about how working with Dominican and like Latin players that you can't speak the same language to taught him that like, you know, the most important thing in coaching is like understanding all the intricacies of like where the athlete needs to get to and like where they need to be, but then be able to get them there without having to tell them like all of those intricacies, right? So like being able to put them in a drill or a constraint or whatever it is that gets them to that end point where you know they need to get to without having to teach them like, okay, here's why, all that stuff. And I think about that a lot with like the biomechanics reports and how we can definitely improve that process on our end in terms of like, okay, the athlete doesn't need, you know, all of this information or to understand all of this information. Like as long as we can get them like most effectively from like point A to point B, that's really all that matters, you know?
Yeah. I think that's the great thing with the constraints. It's like you're not having to coach. You're letting them coach themselves because they're trying to move better, right? And that's kind of like the feedback with the radar gun, right? Like it's essentially a performance evaluator, right? Like because everybody wants to throw hard. Like so, if you hold constant the strength conditioning program and the throwing program, and you start throwing harder, then you're moving better. It's just an efficiency score. And I think once you kind of phrase it like that, it also takes some of the anxiety out, because like the most like stress that the athlete is going to go is when as soon as they like toe that rubber and they like go get their sign. Like that's the most stressful like event that they're going to do. So like we're trying to train them for that. Yeah. It's like we're introducing stressors a little bit along the way to get them prepared for that. And I think that you're definitely hit it on the head. Like as far as like what do they need to understand? Like if I can't explain it to them extremely vaguely and simply, that I don't understand it well enough myself, but also like they're not going to be able to take it and run with it with any kind of success. Yeah.
And athletes like communicate in different ways in terms of like what cue works for them, right? And you know, like the cue that works for one guy probably isn't going to work for another guy, but the one cue that holds constant across all athletes is throwing a pitch, seeing the velocity, throwing another pitch, and then seeing the change in velocity. Like that is communicated to everyone, right? Doesn't matter like language or what cues work for you, but if you like do something internally and velo bumps by like 3 miles an hour, there's just that little like, oh shit, like, okay, that's what I need to do kind of a thing in that moment.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we're a bunch of big dumb animals that we just want to see like triple digits, like on the radar gun. Like honestly, every time somebody is throwing close to 98, 99, like everybody in the gym comes over and watch, and we all celebrate like idiots when all of a sudden we see like 3 digits instead of 2. Like it's the dumbest thing in the world. Yeah. Especially like I know you probably don't understand, but as somebody that can throw hard, like I like have to deal with that a lot. But so it's just crazy to me.
Yeah, no. I mean, back in the day, that used to be 90. When someone used to hit 90, everyone at the 2016 facility just fucking exploded, and now you just get booed off the mound.
Yeah, so. you can get outs with 90 as long as it's a changeup. I would say. I definitely like if that's your changeup. I think that's definitely a good.
Okay.
No, Brady. I remember when you got me on whatever cue you got me. I forget it now, but it bumped me up 3 miles from 66 to 69, enough to win the York bet. So,
yeah. I don't remember what that cue was, but I mean,
you do remember what it was?
No, I don't. Honestly, I'm like an in the moment coach. I mean, hey, you ever want to switch jobs, Caps? Throw me back on the floor. Athlete results will, it'll be like nothing Driveline's ever seen before. So.
Oh, I don't doubt that. I doubt we will get we will get results.
Oh yeah,
good or bad, I'm not sure.
Oh well, I'm pretty confident they'd be good. Might crack a couple eggs along the way. Labrum here, elbow there. Never know. Really gotta push the guys to their limits.
We're all working at Driveline, so obviously we're into weighted balls and throwing using overload and underload implements. I just wanted to know, like, before coming to Driveline as an athlete, was that something that you used or at least dabbled with before, or is that something that was pretty new? And did that have any like bearing on your decision to come train at Driveline? Kind of like at the end of trying to come back.
So for me, I was more concerned. I had used some weighted balls in the past, but it was more as like a warm up and like pre-throwing. And then like very first few throws of the day. But I didn't actually use them like with any kind of consistency, like plyo mount velos or anything like that. Pull downs, I'd never done that. Just long toss basically. So like I was more like interested in the biomechanics side and just like efficient like mechanics. Like what is like a good efficient movement pattern for the overhand thrower. And so that was more what pushed me. Like I could take or leave the weighted balls at the time. And now I see like they definitely, for some athletes, they work really well. For some athletes, they like do the job. But like, I definitely am more geared towards like, how do we make you a better mover? And if a heavier implement helps you do that, if that heavier implement like helps you keep from forearm fly out, then we probably like, elongated your career somewhat, because all of a sudden that heavy implement doesn't feel very comfortable when it gets far away from your body, right? Like same thing as like a hand clean or a power clean. Like as soon as that weight gets away from your body, like it gets a lot heavier really fast.
Right.
And I think I kind of use that analogy with guys a lot. Like, hey, like the trunk dump and the forearm fly out are probably like in conjunction, probably going to be your biggest limiting factor in the length of your career if you're doing those two things together,
Kind of shooting back to some previous questions, but I think this is pretty interesting and something we haven't had someone with good experience to talk on the show. But what are your general thoughts towards high performance integration of pitching? And I assume that's got to be way different at Driveline versus pro ball. So yeah, open-ended question. Just kind of curious for anything you got on that topic.
Yeah. So for me, I was always a guy that lifted a lot during the season. I didn't care if I was pitching that night. I didn't care. Like I would go in and get my lifts. Like that was what I was going to do. And
like 95-pound squats, I'm assuming. Putting it up there, 95-pound squats.
95 pounds?
75-pound bench, I'm assuming?
Yeah. Whatever the heaviest dumbbells I could find usually. But honestly, like that was my thing. Like I wanted to be as good in September as I was, in early season. So that was, and I felt like that was really important. I felt like I saw results with that. But I was amazed in pro ball with the guys that like wouldn't lift. Like they wouldn't lift for 6 months. And it's like, you wonder why your power numbers are down, etc. Like I remember there wasn't one team I played on at any level that a strength coach didn't have to go like track down guys to come in and get their lifts. And I thought that was just absurd. Like, what do you mean? Like, you're a professional athlete. Yeah. Like, that's part of your being an athlete. Like I enjoy going in there and like moving weight around. Like, I think that's fun. Like, it's a challenge. It's different than baseball, but it's still like same competitive mindset. Like, still a challenge. Like, well, I mean, I did 400-pound squat. Like, might as well try 415. You know, like see if I can do it. So I was always forward with like the lack of, I guess, strength work in pro ball. But then as far as the HP side, Driveline, they definitely do a good job of like monitoring, like, hey, like we're going heavy on the throwing side, lighter on the HP side. Okay, I'm downloading or deloading a guy, like, and we're trying to get accumulation. Okay, let's go a little bit heavier in the weight room and really get after it there. But for a lot of these young guys, like that's their like biggest limiting factor is like they're physically weak. Like I could not have you throw at all, then have you go do 6 months of weight room work, and you're going to throw harder. You know, you're going to mature. You're going to start moving better. You're going to be able to control your body more, and you're going to start throwing harder. So I definitely think they are hand in hand. And I really like the, I guess, continuity between the HP and the throwing side.
Yeah.
And I'm actually taking 6 months off lifting so I can compete with Lindley. So it'll be a fair time. So I'm 1 month in Lindley. Wait 5 more months and should be fair.
Okay. Sounds good, dude.
The bench press the best fastball pitch design. That's all you need, Caravan. Just no, you should go 6 months no lifting, straight into 6 months of only bench press.
I think I'd still be Caravan.
It's the best pitch design. It'd be the perfect case study. See if you go from throwing nothing at all to just pumping fuel.
Dude, I'm the worst outlier though on bench press and fastball velo, dude. Caps could write a LinkedIn article about me.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
The force plate velo predictor.
Yeah, your man needs to work on that. Jump in there.
Caps, what's your favorite city you've been to for like food and drink wise?
So I'd say, honestly, I really like New Orleans. Great food, pretty cool nightlife. Me and my wife stayed in the Garden District, which was like a really cool area, like a lot of old homes. And I just loved it. I thought that was a really cool spot. Definitely a lot of like culture and then just like weird, like the French influence is kind of big there. So it's kind of cool to see that interaction. And I thought I loved it.
Interesting.
Who's like the funnest / craziest teammate you've had that you'd be down to talk about on air? So we can pretend you got an uncensored top 3 list, but like on the censored list, what do you got?
I'm trying to think. Oliver Perez. I played with him, and that guy was crazy. Very funny though. Like he was like, obviously English was a second language. He's a Mexican-born guy, but he's just very like he's super fluent. But like the humor, like I swear, like he had like it'd be like a huge stressful moment or something. I'd be like warming up in the bullpen or something, and like he would just yell, "Step off, step off, step off!" Like I was like, okay, so I would step off and like. He's a good job. Good job. Control the running game. Like, oh man. So I thought that was hilarious. Yeah. And he would do that all the time. Like, just like I say, he was always freaking there for laughs. I really cool.
When do we get to try out some organic Carter Caps eggs from the egg farm, chicken farm?
So listen, they're molting right now. So that means they're like losing their feathers. Okay. So then they when they do that, they have to grow them all back, obviously. And so they stop laying. I have like 70 chickens and I've got like 2 eggs in the last 3 days. Like I go out there every morning with like a pan of like frying grease. I'm like, listen, like there's 2 options. We can do this. So I've been trying like fear tactics. I've been like shaming them. Like I'll say, listen, like this is embarrassing. I had to go buy eggs. This is embarrassing. I'm an egg farmer and I had to go buy eggs.
Do your job. Do your job.
I'm giving them hell right now. So I'm hoping they turn around. Their egg KPIs are down this month for sure.
Yeah.
The first week you were in all hands when you started, I think it was in the spring, introduce yourself as a egg farmer. I was like, what, dude? Like, I didn't know if it was a joke. I didn't know what to take serious or what.
No, this is real. That's real. Organic eggs.
How many chickens you got?
I think we got like 70 right now, but I got a few roosters that are on their way out, if you know what I mean.
Ready for the frying pan.
That was tragic.
I think I'm going to drop them off at Chick-fil-A.
Oh, wow. There you go.
Yeah, try to exchange them for one Chick-fil-A sandwich.
Oh, that'd be actually a good idea. I'm just here for the exchange program. Yeah. Here's a rooster.
That could be the fear tactic, actually. You take one away, come back, a few hours later with a bag of Chick-fil-A and just eat it. And just be like, hey, I don't know, man.
It's tough, though, dude. In high school, one time I was in an out driveway or drive-through. I tried giving them like raw potatoes in exchange for free fries, and they refused me. They're like, "Oh no, bro, we got way bigger spuds than that. We can't use those." Like, dog, this is 20 pounds of potatoes. Give me what a free $1.50 fries.
So you're big on going off the gold standard and back onto the barter system.
Yeah,
dude.
Yeah.
I think money's overrated, man. We just need to start exchanging goods and stuff.
Oh wow.
So I'm thinking just athletes coming in. Let's not charge them for assessments. Just like if they got nice clothes, we can maybe get some clothes, some food. We don't really need money. I could do with a car though. I don't have a car yet, so I mean we can figure out seniority at Driveline, but
for sure.
Start exchanging assessments for cars.
Oh, you want to go into the annual plan? Perfect. That's one Nissan Corolla.
Nissan Corolla. God damn it, Caps.
All right, Carter, you got any questions for us? This is your chance. This is like it.
I guess just I've sent in some R&D requests. Like when are those things going to get popped out?
Gotta call me out like that.
I think Lindley is in charge of.
We've got to.
I do have a question. Okay. So a while back, I read. I think it's one that pretty common continued education for Driveline. I'm sure you guys have probably read it, but it was basically like Japanese throwers versus American throwers and lead knee flexion and elbow extension. I just thought that was kind of interesting. Just the differences. I guess why do you think? Like in my mind. Obviously, it takes a large toll on your body if you're moving down the mound quickly to consistently like do hundreds and hundreds of reps of blocking, right? Mm-hmm. I could see that like taking a toll, and just the fact that like Japanese and Asian pitchers are known for like doing lots of reps. Do you think that might be a contributing factor to like some of the excessive knee flexion? Like usually they generally have a poor lead leg block. Yeah. And I think some of that might be just sheer reps, right? Like you're still preserving your body to some extent. Like they want to like cushion that, or I guess that would be kind of just interesting. Something maybe you could elaborate on.
Yeah. So it was definitely like we noticed it over there, and a couple of translators like told us too that it's to the point where in like training and development, the front knee like locking out is just like it's a taboo thing. It's like it's like a bad like pitching mechanics
injury risk or
thing. I'm sorry, what?
Like as an injury risk, or
I don't know. I don't exactly know what it is. I don't know if it's injury or just like bad mechanics or what the deal is. But they were like very adamant that like no, that's like not something we do over here. But what I do think goes on is that they're in like really good shape. They're really flexible. They do like a ton of just like general body, like range of motion, flexibility work and all of that. And so I think that because of that, they can, block from what we would call like a pretty compromised position, right? They're like, their center of gravity is super low. They're like deep into their knee and they just plant, but they're so flexible and just strong and athletic that they can block just as well, if not better than like, Americans can, just from like how we lock out that knee. I mean, even if you look at like videos of, Ohtani and even early Darvish, like they'll land.
Why don't you choose Ohtani as an example?
They just land with like a ton of that front knee flexion, but they just stick it, they don't need to like claw back. And I think that they're, because of the volume that they throw with, I don't think their like hamstrings would last if they locked out all the time, right? Because they just throw like so many pitches that, maybe they would just like burn out if they were like flexing and locking out that much. So I don't know. I don't know if there was anything else over there. I did notice a couple mounds were like a little slippery in terms of the surface. Does that sound right, Lindley?
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up, but I wasn't sure. There's like basically the clay. It wasn't really clay.
Yeah, it was like a different material that they used on the mounds.
It was really soft sand, and they watered it all the time.
Yeah,
they had it watered down all the time. Yeah. So we thought that maybe
maybe
it's
like a little
stability
like cue
thing
there, like just like constantly landing on like that more slippery top surface. You just like can't lock out on that immediately. So they just like plant and try to stick in kind of that like flex position maybe.
I mean, I guess as long as you stop like linear momentum, like does it really need to be locked out? Probably not. Yeah. Like if it's strong and stable laterally, like it's still a block. It's not like facilitating maybe quicker pelvis angles, but I could definitely see that. And that's like another thing too, like the block is such an impulse. Like if you're blocking from that like lower center of gravity position, like you're talking about, is the impulse as strong, and even the guys I worked with some of the Korean guys when they came in gym early, and it just seemed like they weren't moving very fast down the mound in general.
Yeah.
They were much slower down the mound, much lower center of gravity. Yeah. Like maybe they just don't need, like that's not where their force production is coming from.
Yeah. And I think
a lot of them have really high arm speeds.
Yeah, definitely the high arm speeds, but I also think that that like speed down the mound thing, the biggest thing I noticed over there is momentum control, right? And it's like that's the hitch that they all have, is when they do that like leg lift and they pause at the top, or even in like slide steps, they kind of just like lift, is they don't use like the wind up or a leg lift or anything to like create momentum. They're always in control of their momentum. They start from like a pause, so they're just like very in control and probably know exactly what they need to block, as opposed to, we kind of just sometimes try to create like huge leg kicks, like wind up, counter rotate, fly down the mound, and then we just like excessively block. So it's like going over the top on both of those. And a lot of times that's where you see those like fake lead leg blocks where they actually like sink in a bit into their front knee and then they like lock out. Like that's not really doing anything compared to what they do over
delayed.
There. Yeah.
I guess, would you recommend any articles on like, as far as like Latin American pitchers? Because I feel like there's definitely like, if I had to put it in different categories, I would say like there's definitely the American style of pitching, the like Asian style of pitching, and then like Latin American style, which I would say involves like a very strong like lead leg, typically a lot of counter rotation, a lot like crazy arm internal rotations, and probably trunk angular velocities as well. They just seem like they're very like more rotational, I guess, in like Latin American countries, in my opinion, just like visually. Are there any studies on that? Do you know of? Or
I don't know of any studies or papers on that. I think it'd be interesting too. I think there's like probably two types of Latin American throwers. There's probably like the younger ones that haven't received American coaching, and then there are the like slightly older ones that have, and that would be a really interesting like case study, because we noticed that when we did stuff in the DR is like the 16 to 17 year olds threw a lot different than like the 19 to 20 year olds that had like been there for 2 or 3 years. Like you can tell that there were some people that had, either been like coached out of patterns or were all kind of like becoming these, very similar throwing motions, where the young guys, they just like, it was like, you could just point at a ball and just like pick up and throw it, and they would just launch it like 90, like instantly.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter how. Like they could do it with like all types of mechanics. It was just like, whatever it took to kind of deliver the ball, kind of a thing. So that'd be pretty interesting. I think it's pretty randomized over there, honestly. I think we saw a ton of different types of throwers. I don't know if there was anything that like really stuck out to me. I think they kind of just like have free reign to do whatever they want mechanically, and just like figure it out as they go until they kind of like get coaching, which I think sometimes tears down a really good thing.
Like for sure. No, that makes sense. Like even the playing surfaces over there, like it's all randomized, right? Like the fields and like it's randomized ground balls all the time. Like you're doing every ball is a reaction ball.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I still think like one of the funniest things when we went over there is like when the younger guys, apparently the majority of coaching in like the early days over there is just like teaching them the game of baseball. Like 4 balls equals a walk. This is a balk. You can't do that on the mound, kind of a thing, you know, like they're just like, have no idea like the structural rules of it all. And that's like the majority of the coaching. So I'd love to just see like raw 16-year-old, just like unbiased, you know, live AB action over there. Just like, couldn't even imagine. They might throw from 50 feet. That's the most insane thing. Is when the 16-year-olds, they just start ripping flat grounds 40 feet away from each other, and they're just catching it like it's nothing. They have no like sense of the actual distance they need. It's like, oh my God, this is insane. Someone's gonna die here. This is nuts. He's blowing people up.
Thanks for coming on, Carter.
Yeah, no, thank you guys.
What's my final truck count at?
I think 53 is what I had.
53?
Yeah,
Okay.
if you're counting the UPS one in the back right now.
Yeah. And then YouTube viewers.
Honestly, you look like a trucker right now.
Yeah, that's actually his truck.
These are all mine. These are all mine.
His. Yeah. About to go.
Baby, pull the truck around, baby.
Yeah. About to go the last couple miles in. Yeah. All right. Thanks, man. Thanks for coming on. Damn.
Oh yeah, no problem. Yeah, just put that check in the mail. I'll be looking out for it.
Yeah. As long as the eggs are delivered on time, so you better get going on threatening them.
Awesome. I'll see you guys.
All right.
See you, man.